Welcome to Fun is Fundamental. Fun is Fundamental is a podcast for those who realize that the enjoyment of life is about having something deep in our souls which lights our fire. It's for those who maybe have lost that fire and feel like they are missing out on the pleasures of life. In each episode, I will share recent fun activities and focus on why having fun is essential for good health. I'm your host, Alenia, and I invite you to take this journey with me and join the pleasure-seeking movement. Hi, Lynn. How are you doing today?
I am just fine, thank you. It is a beautiful non-muggy sticky day. So it's like peak early August right now. So
That's great.
I'm very happy. And I probably shouldn't have said that because we don't know when this is going to air and now I've locked it down to but
That happens all the time. Like it'll be like around a holiday and we'll be talking about this holiday and then it's like, oh yeah, 3 months later, it's finally come
right,
out. It's like,
right,
whatever,
right.
whatever.
Or this comes out in like freezing winter and everyone's like, "Oh, it must have been nice when it was warm." So, yeah.
Yeah. I'm envious of past you and your warmth. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Uh, so I guess first, can you tell the audience a little bit about yourself?
I'd be happy to. Thank you. And thanks again for having me. My name is Lynn Harris, and my current thing, although I'm happy to talk about past things, is that I'm the founder and CEO of Gold Comedy, which is the comedy school and professional network and content studio where women and non-binary creators uh, build their comedy careers and creative side hustles and join a powerful community and make funny stuff that does get seen on all kinds of stages and screens. And I bring to, I'm happy to, oops, that was my cat knocking something over. I'm happy, oh, that was my cat knocking something else over. Two for two over there with the stuff to my right. Um, and I'm happy to talk about the why and all that stuff, but the brief way I'll put it is that I bring to Gold decades of being passionate about and working around the, let's call it, the intersection of comedy and entertainment and making a difference, and trying to finding that the cool intersection of comedy and social change, which is it's a pretty busy intersection, and it's a pretty powerful place to be. So yeah, I was a journalist, I was a comedian, I did all sorts of things that combined all of these things, and then I finally kind of funneled and channeled it all toward Gold, which is what I'm doing now.
Nice. So when did you start Gold Comedy?
It's been in development in various forms for many years, both in my mind and and in reality. The club, we call it the Gold Comedy Club. The club, it's not a place, it's a online headquarters. As it exists now, the company as it exists now really came together in 2021. And we've been growing the way it looks now. We've been growing that version of the company since then. But I've been thinking about it in one way or another for a long time, including just the idea of thinking about the just the fact that there's a whole bunch of reasons why we need more women and broadly more inclusivity in comedy, as we do everywhere, by the way.
Hmm. Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think comedy is definitely a industry that is very geared towards men. Uh, like way more than I mean, some industries obviously women were, included more quickly maybe than so than like comedy maybe.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, right. I mean, almost every industry, could use some more inclusivity and diversity for a whole bunch of reasons,
Mhm.
including as an end in itself, because they are inherently good, and inclusivity and diversity, but also as we all know, typically, the industry is more successful when it has the benefit of uh, different people bringing different perspectives to the table to maximize the just the and broaden the smarts, that are being that are they're developing, building whatever the industry it is. So, and it's certainly true of comedy. And it also, and the thing with comedy though is that it matters. It's people do say, and they're not wrong, that comedy is such a welcome distraction or diversion from reality.
Mm-hmm.
Not wrong. Not going to argue with that. But that's not all it is.
Mm-hmm.
It actually, comedy, and when I say comedy, I'm talking about all kinds of, every kind of comedy you can possibly think of, and probably some you can't, and maybe even some you can't. Um, Even like funny ads, I think I'm including that. Um, the comedy itself, broadly speaking, really is power. It has the power to shift norms and perceptions and attitudes and sometimes even actions, whether it's because the comedy itself, the comic experience, is about an important issue and it allows that important issue to be seen a different and sort of felt a different way, in a less confronting way, or whether it's because the person doing it or the people doing it are outside what's still the comedy norm, which is typically a straight white dude named Norm, who may be very funny, no shade to Norm, but just simple sometimes, usually, but simply the act of showing up to do whatever kind of comedy it is, if you're outside that norm, helps shift the perception of who has power, who has something to say, who must we listen to. And therefore, even when you're just doing your dream job or just trying it out, you actually are contributing to social change.
Mm-hmm.
You're contributing to like changing the face of, even I'd go so far, changing the face of comedy. I'd go so far as to say changing the face of comedy contributes to changing the face of power.
Well, yeah, I mean, there's something very like I maybe the I don't know if this is the right word. This is just what came to my head. Like, humanize people that you don't identify with,
Yeah.
like, right? Like,
Yeah.
to be like, oh yeah, like sometimes it's like really like, oh, look at all these things that we do have in common also, right?
Right. And what's interesting about that is, I mean, that's exactly it. That's exactly it. And what's interesting is you can find those connections with good comedy and even just good storytelling. You can find those connections no matter how different your lives and backgrounds are. You and the person or people performing, or, whatever, doing whatever comedy they're doing. Meaning that it's kind of amazing, and it's sort of it's going to sound like a paradox, but and we always say this to people when we're, coaching them, when you write comedy or write a story for the stage or for audio, whatever, the more specific that you get about your own experience or just whatever you're describing, the more relatable it is to more people. Weird, right? But it's true, because the more specific that you get, the more vivid your account is, and therefore the more it taps into something primal that someone can relate to, even if they don't relate to the particulars. I mean, even like someone, I'm an only child, but someone talking about their siblings and feelings and experiences and feelings and experiences, turns out I can relate to whatever they're talking about, because they're talking about something that isn't about having 8 siblings. It's about wanting to be loved, wanting attention, whatever those primal themes are.
Mhm.
um, the more vivid a picture someone can paint, the more relatable it is, no matter how different it is from your own experience. And that's some of the magic of that, that comedy can do.
Yeah. What, I guess, like, how, like, what was the evolution of you coming, like, bringing this together as like this is like your brainchild? How did this evolve?
Well, the strands that I've always kind of worked to weave separately and together are, yeah, are comedy, making the world a better place, um, writing, creativity, collaboration, all those things. And certainly not just writing like journaling, but like I was a, as I said, I was a journalist for and an author for years and years and years, despite my youthful appearance. And the through line that developed, that was always there but really became deliberate, was the idea of like, what if we could do both? What if we could leverage comedy, which I just love? That's it. There's nothing deep about it. I just like it.
Hmm.
What if we could, but I also love comedy, hate patriarchy. Oh, what if we could use one to challenge the other? And it wasn't like my own idea. Like plenty, there's millions there now. It's really there's a real field around the power of comedy to drive in one way or another to drive social change. So this isn't like my own original, or maybe when I was 21, I thought it was my own original idea. But I'm certainly I'm one small part of a large field now, that people contribute. It's comedy and social change, and also just the idea of culture change, which is
Hmm.
a real field now, that has been emerging over the past couple of decades. Um, so I kind of brought these things that I cared about as I kind of explored them more in my, let's say in my 20s and on into my 30s. I found myself merging with, fields that themselves already existed and were developing as well. Comedy for change, culture change. And so I was able to kind of really find a foothold. But, even when I was a journalist, and I'm never not a journalist, but even when that was my main job, I, because I worked at it for so many years, I was ultimately able to kind of really make my brand about taking on tough issues with appropriate humor in a way that just made people want to read, that made people, that pointed out injustice in a comic way, like connecting two dots that you hadn't seen connected before, which is what kind of what comedy does. Whether it was about things that are inherently not particularly funny, whether it's you know gender-based violence, like, yes, you can, it turns out, bring a prop there's a proper way, no one way, but there are proper ways to bring humor to those issues, that actually kind of forward the conversation, or have the capacity to bring in people who weren't thinking about the issue, to help people realize they have a stake in the issue, as opposed to like it being a thing that happens to other people. So I was kind of honing all of these things and kind of weaving all these threads together for a long time. And then several years ago, I was like, what if I just help more women become comedians? Then I could just like maximize the effect right there. So, and I'm not the only one who has thought of that, but
Yeah.
I certainly, but I kind of developed my own take on it with Gold.
Yeah. Obviously, there's been discussion. Discussion. I don't know if like that's actually the right word either. Like people being like, "Oh, women aren't funny," or something like that. Like, which I'm just like, I'm always just like, "Oh," like just roll
So
my
right,
eyes, right?
for the people listening at home, please know, for the visual, that my eyes just rolled up into my head so far that they went around the back of my skull and came forward to the front again, which is basically what I think of that. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, it's just it's, for me, I don't even like engage with that. Like, I'm happy to talk about it, but I don't, but in the world, I don't engage with that at a level of logic. Like, I'm not interested in being like, yes, they are.
Hmm.
Like, I'm not interested because it's such a stupid thing to say in the first place that I'm not going to meet it at its level. So like, what am I going to do? Like, roll out all it's that's just like a all that is, and there are specific dudes who, like, famous dudes and just regular dudes who've said that for years, and they're just saying they don't listen to women. I, I and I'm not saying if they listen to women they'd find them funny. They don't. Like, they're just not interested.
Hmm.
So what am I going to do? Argue with them?
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to me. That's the whole point.
Yeah.
So like, they're not. This is, I'm just, I roll, and also like bored now. You know, I'm just
Hmm.
it's just a non-starter. And I sort of wish, like, I'm happy to talk about it for exactly this reason, but it's kind of one of those ones where, like, are we still saying what, you know, and people, it's still, this happened all the time. And any woman who's done stand up has had this happen to her. There's been some dude who, usually a dude, who comes up afterwards and says, you know, I didn't think women were funny, but you're hilarious. And you're like, thanks. You know, and like that happened all the time in the 90s when I did stand up, and it still freaking happens. So just like, can we just, you know, I, I just, yeah, it's just, I'm not even gonna give it the time of day, on its own terms, other than to be
Hmm.
like, bro, just, bro, you just like, when someone tells you who they are, you know,
Mm. Yeah, oh yeah, yeah. That's a very much like a listen to them when they tell you who they are. This is who
right.
this person is. Yeah.
Right. I'm not going to spend time being like, but Amy Poehler, like, I'm just not like, it's so silly. It's silly. And I don't even like, that's why I'm not even outraged. It's silly. It's tiny and silly and small-minded and dumb. And you
Hmm.
just, anyone who says that looks dumb.
Hmm.
It's just silly or looks silly. Like, this just, I can't even engage with the logic of it.
Yeah. It very much has like, vibes of like, girls have cooties or something like that. Like it's like, wow, you're so immature that you can't like, acknowledge like any of this. Yeah.
Exactly. And right. If you say girls have cooties, exactly. What are you gonna, like, the argument is not, no, we don't. Right? Like,
Yeah.
you just don't even engage. It's just so, it's not even a thing. It's just
Yeah.
a non-starter.
Yeah. Um,
What if we
and
did? Wouldn't that be awkward? Sorry, I'm just
oh no, what would you say?
what if we did? Wouldn't that be awkward? If
Oh
all this
yeah.
time cooties, that would be awkward.
I,
Anyway,
I'm so embarrassed. Apparently, I had cooties all this time.
I
Yeah.
know. And they told me. They told me over and over, and I never
Yeah.
checked. All
Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah. Yeah. Um, I guess like, like generally when it comes to topics that are more difficult to talk about and like how to go about it with comedy. Like what are some of the ways to do that?
Yeah, that's a great question. Because it's not obvious, right? It's
Yeah.
completely not obvious. Um, I'll give you a couple of things that apply to kind of different types of comedy, or just, well, it doesn't matter. Here's my answer. It's Friday. I'm sloppy. The first thing is to, I guess I'm lumping together things that are like bad things in the world, and also that are not funny, and also things that are like bad things that happen to you. And those
Hmm.
are two different topics that a comic might take on.
Sure.
But some of the guidance, I would say, is the same. What I'm thinking of that I love slash hate slash love to use as an example is, I was doing stand up when September 11th happened. Not literally, but I mean, I was,
Yeah.
and see, that was funny. And because, you know why? That was like, okay, I'll just analyze my own joke, which was just an offhand wisecrack. That joke then was, what I was about to say is that it's not that silly throwaway wisecrack was not actually about what happened on September 11th,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
It was just like, it was a play on words because I said something that sounded strange, so I just remarked upon it,
Hmm.
Um, and my friend Richie Duncan, very good comedian and comedy writer, famously, and I say famously because his mom was a minister, so she let him like give the sermon like short, not long after September 11th, to talk about like how can we ever laugh again, basically. And
Hmm.
one of the things he said that I always repeat and give him credit for is, in cases like that, you can't make fun of the rock, but you can make fun of the ripple. So the actual attacks, God forbid, like, we can't,
Yeah.
there's literally not, it's not possible, right? But what you can do is make fun of, in this case, the ripple is our reaction,
Hmm.
our befuddled reaction. That's why The Onion was so funny when it came out. Finally, it was the first, humor public. It was the first humor anything to kind of dare to kind of walk into that space after that. And one of their most famous articles that I always love to quote was, not knowing, it was something like this. The headline was something like this: not knowing what else to do, Midwest woman bakes flag cake. And I thought that was so funny and poignant because it's about our reaction. It in a very sort of corny way and quaint way. It captured like the reaction of people, especially in the Midwest, or anywhere but New York or in DC, who weren't affected by it the way we were, speaking as a New
Mhm.
Yorker, but still were completely broken by it and didn't know what to do. And so it captured our befuddled reaction in such a sweet, funny way.
Mhm.
And so that joke was about us. And you could also make jokes about like the completely racist US reaction to the whole thing, or the giant screw up that was the war that happened after, like those are all completely fair game, right?
Mhm.
But obviously not the attacks.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
But I know, but it's a little like, it sounds obvious when I say it, but that's a helpful one that is so obvious that it helps you kind of think about the other ones, right? The
Hmm.
other thing is that if you're talking about, and we have a class called Comedy About Trauma, so I've thought about this. We have wonderful teachers for it. Who Carolyn Castillo is one of is the one who kind of made it her own. She's great. Um, and you kind of have to, a thing that she has said and will say is you kind of have to be, you have to be a little okay already before you do jokes about it. Like this is not therapy. This is not your
Hmm.
journal. If you're talking about, whether it's, assault or just anything just truly awful, that is completely fair game, I believe, to talk about on stage. Again, first of all, what are you making fun of? Obviously, you're not making fun of like other victims, like,
Hmm.
or other survivors. Duh, no.
Sure.
But we could be making fun of your own kind of vulnerability in the face of this awful thing, and like the quote unquote like silly things that bad choices. I don't want to say bad choices, but like, yeah, sure, we have people at Gold who talk about like their terrible first marriage, which that you can talk about like a so-called bad choice without like beating yourself up about it, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And um uh you have to somehow directly or indirectly convey to the audience that you're okay enough to talk about this so they can all relax while you do.
Hmm.
So it's a matter of time. Is it too soon for you? It's a matter of, and the audience will know. Um, it's a matter of being very careful and precise about what you're making fun of and what you're not. And it's a matter actually of really having enough distance that you can make those choices wisely, and write stuff that's legit funny. Because if you think it's funny, it's probably okay. If you and that means that you've already got some distance. But what's cool, but there's like a little middle ground there, which is cool, which is the process of starting to write material about something traumatic or difficult, whatever, actually requires you as you go to hold that thing at a distance from yourself, metaphorically, and kind of inspect it, and like flip it over a little bit and be like, well, what's funny about this? What's funny about this? What's funny about this? And by definition, therefore, you have it at enough of a distance that it's sort of a circular argument. You have to get it to that distance, but then and that's how you know you're able to write about it, but you also get more and more able to write about it as you hold it at that distance.
Hmm.
So it's like something you have, not something that is you.
Sure. Yeah.
So it is, you have to be pretty okay, but then the process of writing and performing comedy about it helps. It's not therapy, but it helps make you even more okay because
Hmm.
you exert the control over it.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense because like you it's like no longer has like the same it's I mean obviously since you've already healed part way, but it's like it no longer has the same power over you to like, you know, do the damage, that it, you know.
Yeah.
So,
I recommend I went to the I went to the taping of a fantastic comedy special that you can find on YouTube now, um, with three amazing comedians. I'll say who they are, but uh, it was called The Dead Moms Club, and then the subtitle was "It'll Be Funny, We Promise," and it was Bob the Drag King. Bob the what am I saying? I was just finished watching King of Drag, so I'm thinking about Drag Kings. Um, great show, recommend. Bob the Drag Queen, amazing stand-up in addition to being an amazing drag queen. Sydney Washington and Christy Cello, and they all talked about losing their moms, which is not funny. Of course, the what they talked about and the kind of pathos of it was funny.
Mhm.
It made you feel good. It made you feel related to it, made you feel heard and seen if you had been in a similar position, even if you hadn't, you who among us could not relate to some kind of loss of an important figure?
Mhm.
Um, and they all had like complicated relate. I mean, it was a whole thing. Anyway, I recommend it. So if you want to see sort of a master class in, they won't tell you how they did it, but they'll do it. In that kind of taking something inherently, um, certainly complex, if not just sad, and making it into absolute pure gold comedy, so to speak. Um, Go find that show on YouTube. It dropped a little while ago, and you can see me in the front row laughing and crying and laughing and crying.
Yes, definitely. I mean, there's like been kind of, you know, obviously there's like the term of like, like laughing instead of crying about things, like obviously. And like laughter obviously being medicine, kind of like both like spiritually and like emotionally, but also like I think even like physically, like
Yeah.
there's like studies about like laughter being
Yeah.
healing.
And smiles. There's studies about smiles, how they like force them, when you like force different like endorphins and hormones and stuff to activate. I don't look it up, I'm not sure, but it's like that.
Mhm.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah. So I mean, like, is it, I guess if like someone is like going through a process of healing, like they've gotten enough distance, like, is it something that would you even like recommend like people to find the humor in what they have experienced?
Only if they're ready, because like there's probably there, I mean, among many annoying things that someone could say to you if you're like going through a thing, could be like, don't worry, you'll see the humor. Like you have to know for sure that they're ready.
Yeah, when
Um,
the time is
yeah,
right.
yeah.
Yeah.
And you might be wrong, so I would wait even longer. Or not. Maybe like if you're me, I mean, I mean, if you're me, there's no too soon. Like, but that's just me. Like, I remember this will not be horrifying, I promise. It'll be funny, we promise. Um, but the night, like literally the night my dad died, I still it was awful. But it was expected and all that, like nothing ghoulish. Um, but we were very close, but then there the one of the people who came from the funeral home to get him was, I still laugh when I think about it, even though it was like one of the worst nights of my life, because he was wearing like a vest and a very tailored, almost like Elizabethan um waistcoat. Um and like was very he was young, way younger than me, but very like Victorian manners, and like nice. I mean, he was doing his job fine. I don't mean to like make fun of him, but he was like a little extra.
Mm-hmm.
And like he went, they walked into the room or walked away with I can't remember what, but I remember like I could, and my husband's also very like, for my husband is like funny and like there's no too soon and whatever. And he was with me, and I could, how when someone is like right next to you is thinking something, you can't look at each other, because you're just like, and you're thinking the same thing. And the guy walked away, and I'm bawling, and the guy walked away, and I was like, I'm pretty sure he's a vampire. And I wasn't even like trying to be funny. It was
Yeah.
just couldn't it was impossible not to notice that this guy was like lovely, again, doing his job well, but like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
Yeah.
Um, and my husband was like, "Of course he's a vampire." And so we were just laughing, and it wasn't like inappropriate, or maybe someone else it wouldn't have been the right moment, like of
Hmm.
course.
Yeah.
But for me, it was just like, how do I not notice? Look at him? How do I not say this? You know?
Well, and it's like you can't help but be like, how, like, what was it that like were you already like wanting to dress like this and then you were drawn to working
He
with
looked
like
like he looked
dead
like not as
bodies
hot,
or
but he was kind of like Brad Pitt in Interview with a Vampire, like that whole look.
yeah.
And it's like, I was like, oh, hello. Did you just walk out of a funeral home or an Anne Rice novel? Like it was like that whole thing. And he
Yeah.
wasn't creepy. He wasn't creepy. He just looked like a very elegant uh vampire by day, by night. It was nighttime too, of course. So it was perfectly reasonable for him to be out and about. Also, I mean, an undertaker. I mean, like he works with I mean, it was
Yeah,
just too
yeah, yeah. It's like
so
just so perfect,
I know.
like that
Yeah.
this is who would come.
Right. So you have to know the person is what I'm saying. Like I think people would know with me that they could joke with me the literally the day either or both of my parents died and it would be fine.
Hmm.
Um and even about that, like they
Hmm.
could joke about my mom, like do you feel like your mom is still telling you to wash your hands? And I'd be like, "Yes," like but they know me.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think maybe like an interim thing to do. This might be too much, but wouldn't be to tell someone else to find the humor or like write jokes, but like to
Sure.
recommend the humor of someone who has been through it. And again, you don't
Mm.
want to do it too soon, but like seriously, I would recommend the Dead Moms Club comedy show to like anybody. I just wouldn't recommend it like right away.
The day
But
after, right? Yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah.
But the act of consuming that kind of comedy is so I mean it's so cathartic.
Hmm.
Um so at the right time, absolutely.
Yeah. Um, what about, I guess, like, were you like growing up, were you kind of like a class clown? Like what?
A little. I mean a little. There was one episode with the whoopee cushion I remember, which shows my age. But and I could get away with it because I was also a big nerd. So I did goof around a little bit, but then like but the teachers were like, Lynn, I didn't get in trouble.
Yeah, yeah. Because they knew you're
So
also like doing your work
they
and
knew I do
yeah,
my right.
yeah, yeah.
Uh but I mostly just kind of inhaled and consumed a lot of comedy from the get-go, with because my parents had great taste, and they and if the soundtrack in our house wasn't Wagner's Ring Cycle, my parents were opera nerds, then it was Carol Burnett, The Muppet Show, The Jeffersons, MASH, Laugh-In, uh, Monty Python, um, and it was just sort of normal that was they weren't like big jokers. My dad was kind of silly, but uh very silly actually. But they weren't like it wasn't like living in a vaudeville theater.
Hmm.
But still that was just like it was just in the air in my house. So I was drawn to it and I didn't have like a big moment. I didn't have a 10-year plan of going into comedy. I was just like, this is where I feel good.
Hmm.
This is my happy place.
Yeah.
And uh that's where it started, I guess. And that's just what I was drawn to. Again, I was drawn to, doing the plays and doing, uh and that wasn't the only thing I did, but yeah, in school and beyond. But it was the people I was drawn to, the people who were like, creative types and funny
Hmm.
types, and which I recommend because you always get, you up your game. It's not a competition and it's not always training, but just by being around people who are good at the thing that you like to be good at,
Hmm.
um, you get better at it and then you
Sure.
have more fun.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. When did you like first start? Like when did you first do like stand-up comedy?
I first did it in the early 90s officially.
Hmm.
After college, I was like, I'm going to take a class. And again, it wasn't like one day I will be the next, I was just
Sure.
like, oh, it's time I feel like I'm going to take a class in stand up because I want to. Like it was not deep. Um, so that was the early 90s in Boston. But I also kind of did it in college, in a very sort of rarefied and specific scenario, which was I was a huge a cappella nerd,
Mm.
and we did we did sketches like and jokes and stuff between the songs, not all of them, but and I was sort of my group was like particularly funny, but I'd like to say, but like I was not the only mastermind of the comedy, but I did a bunch of that there too and wrote a bunch of the sketches and so kind of that's the closest I came before I actually just did it for real in Boston.
Sure. Yeah. And was like, like for people like starting out with it, like obviously, like was there ever any times when you were like you really struggled on stage and stuff like that?
Not really. I just it's just I felt comfortable. I, it's not always it doesn't always feel to me it didn't always feel to me like this is going to sound pretentious, but it didn't always feel to me like performing.
Mm,
Um, it
okay.
felt more like chatting. But you came with the script, and not script is also a strong word, but
Hmm.
I and I did a bunch of plays and musicals and all that stuff, but which I loved, but I always really enjoyed even more doing something kind of live and a little rough. Like what that's not perfect because you have to
Hmm.
respect like the opportunity to kind of and I don't even mean doing like major crowd work or like improv. Like I was never very good at improv. But just the thing that where it's a little looser, it's loosey goosey. You're not in a play,
Hmm.
and being able to kind of read the room and respond to, your joke lands one way in one place and your joke lands another way in another place. And it's kind of it's kind of interesting and exciting to, be in the moment. And I never really, I didn't really, I just that's I didn't really get too worked up about it. I mean, everyone gets nervous. Of course, I always got nervous, but I didn't. It was never like that wasn't the biggest. The bigger challenge is to always keep writing new stuff. Ugh.
Mm, to keep it fresh.
Yeah,
Um, I guess like, do you have any like recommendations for people, especially that are, not white men, that if they want to get
I
started?
got a lot of recommendations for white men actually, but
But like to get started in comedy if you're not like the standard of what people expect, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, first of all, just don't let that scare you. Just do it. Um, uh, I mean, of course, I think that, the real solution to a solution to that is try it out with gold because we're exactly not that.
Hmm.
We even have a couple of white dudes, but our thing is that we have no bro vibe. And
Okay.
really what people want to avoid is the bro vibe.
Hmm.
And because there can, that's the anyone can create a bro vibe. Uh and yeah, so the first thing is just do it because you know what, you're always there's you might have to develop a thick skin earlier or later, but you're gonna have to.
Hmm.
And I don't mean to scare you, like it's just that's how it is. Especially trying something new. Um, you'll first of all learn that no one ever died from not getting a laugh, well, that one guy, but uh, uh and that let me be more cogent. Let me back up. Uh, the first thing to know is that the reason you should just give it a whirl is um is that you don't have to, this isn't the reason, this is just encouragement. You don't have to be a different person from who you already are in order to try or even succeed in whatever kind of comedy interests you. You don't have to be less shy. You don't have to be more confident. You don't have to do any of that. Um, you honestly just have to show up. And that's what I'm talking about, just to start. And like if it's kind of like snowboarding, where like your first day is awful. And everyone says you just have to everyone's like, just trust me, just I know it's gonna be terrible. Just get past the first day. I'm not saying your first day is gonna be terrible. It may not. In fact, it's usually your second that's the worst because your friends come to the first one.
Mm.
But the point is but you also can't learn to snowboard unless you do the first day. So
Yeah.
whatever it is, you also can't be a comic without having a bad night. It's not a big deal. It's really not a big deal.
Hmm.
So but the most important thing is don't let those things stop you. It's just part of the job, right? And also that you do not have to be any different. You don't have to be louder. You don't have to think, you don't have to like already think you're funny. It doesn't matter. People develop all their own style of comedy, their own vibe that surprise is almost always exactly your vibe. There are some, I say almost because there are people like Lewis Black, who is like like a really sweet, cheerful guy in real life, but his persona on, his comedy
Mm.
persona is
Yeah.
like is angry. So like
Yeah.
there's some exceptions, but like generally it's just you. So like the really the only thing you're gonna have to do, hate to say it, is work. Everyone, no one, just like that guy who do you think is going to be more successful in comedy? The person, gender doesn't even matter, the person who like always yucks it up at the water cooler and everyone says you ought to try stand up and they try it but they don't work at it,
Hmm.
or the person who is quietly, just mellowly quietly funny, who puts their head down and works and works and works and works and works and works? Who's going to be more successful in comedy?
Yeah, that's definitely the second one. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't mean to like scare anybody, like, but at some point, if you take it seriously, you'll have to work at it. But I promise you, you don't have to get to a different place in your life in order to be successful. I promise you, you don't have to change anything about you or wait for something to happen in order for you to be successful. I promise. So that is, I mean, and yeah, you might have some like crappy mics with, let's all like 25-year-old white dudes with backpacks and hoodies who aren't listening to like you. Yeah, that'll probably happen. But if you make it your business to find places that aren't always to like, find some places that aren't like that, then those places, won't bother you so much,
Mhm.
because we all have to, it happens. But the more you get your reps in at places in community, you'll find your crew. You'll find, whether it's with Gold Comedy, which would be great, or just finding the rest of the people who are escaping what you're escaping. You will find them, and you will be fine.
Yeah, for sure. I like to ask my guests, how do you define fun?
Right. Um, I do honestly, I define fun, or I associate fun with being game and doing something for the story. Nothing ridiculous, not, I wouldn't bungee jump for the story. No, thank you. But I mean, like, being like, all right, let's give it a whirl, with being open to new experiences, open to unfamiliar things. Um, and yes, of course, I'm not saying that familiar things aren't fun. Old friends. Fun is, of course, also old friends who you know exactly what you're going to get, right?
Yeah.
But I particularly value, um and think that it has that just being game for anything has the capacity to deliver maximum fun.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, being yeah, open and yeah. I also like to ask my guests what your play personality is. According to the Institute of Play, there's 8 play personalities. Joker,
Yeah.
kinesthetic, competitor, director, creative, storyteller, collector, and explorer.
Probably some combination of Joker and storyteller.
Mhm.
Um, but I'm hesitating a little bit because I also want to kind of keep in there the idea of, like, it's not just me talking. Like for me, play is also sitting at a dinner party and listening to my friends be hilarious. And so it doesn't always have to be me talking.
Sure.
Um, or creating something with other people is, like, to me, just the pinnacle of play.
Hmm.
So it doesn't have to be like me yapping.
Sure.
So maybe that's also creative. Maybe that's also, so I picked three.
Mhm.
Is that fair?
Oh yeah, yeah, no. I consider myself to be like 3, like for
Mhm.
sure also. So yeah. No, I think that's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question.
Yeah, thank you. I obviously didn't come up with the archetype. I just am like, I like to know. That's all.
Right. Of course.
Um, what do you like to do other than comedy, laughter? What do you like to do for fun in your free time?
I but I mean tons of things, which is also I think just the quality of being game. There are many ways to be game, but I think it served me well. My I got it from my dad. So that people know my dad is more than like the a prop in the joke about the vampire. He was super game and open-minded and just thought everything. He was just like, let's try it, and so I think I got that from him. But the things I really focus on in my spare time that are fun and very nourishing for me are for my soul are gardening. So big nerd, big garden nerd. Cooking, big cooking nerd. Not fancy. I don't sculpt things, but but just being an intuitive, fun cook, enjoying like someone once said, the best way to cook is take the best ingredients and do the least to them.
Hmm.
So I kind of like to do that. And gardening, cooking. Um, I'm a skater. I was a figure skater for a while, and then I switched to hockey, and now I just like to be on anything that is on my feet in the cold weather kind of thing. I don't really do roller much anymore. But I do sometimes. Uh, and um, okay, I mentioned drag. My whole family, especially me and my son, are huge fans of RuPaul's Drag Race and also the new show King of Drag, which I
Hmm.
strongly recommend. So we're like, it's kind of like our home team in this house are like all the world of drag queens and kings is like our Mets, So uh that's just a fun thing, especially to, bond with my family and especially my younger kid who's 16. So it's just a fun, it's like a family sport.
Sounds fun. Yeah.
And he's got like he got his like he got into it during the pandemic when he was younger, and then he got the whole family into it. So now it's just like we're all obsessed with Jinx Monsoon and Bob the drag queen, as I mentioned, and so it's a real it's something we like. Just we know the queens like other people know basketball players and all the stats. So
Do you think being a New Yorker and stuff like that, like, you get more exposed to, you know, like besides just like, hey, this is on TV, like obviously that's kind of like how a lot of Americans get exposed to it. Like, were you exposed to like drag queens and things like that, like earlier? Because like,
um, was I? That's a great question. I mean, I always knew, I always sort of knew they walk among us, like
sure.
but and like even in drag kings who have had less visibility because patriarchy, um,
Hmm.
like I've known, this is one of my like kind of God, I love New York stories is that like Murray Hill, who is one of the most famous, and he doesn't really call himself a drag king, but like I knew who he was when I moved to New York in the 90s. And like through my work, now we're friends. And I'm like, I can't believe I'm friends with Maria, and he's the best. And now he's on Somebody Somewhere, and he was the hosted King of Drag, and so like I knew about him. I knew about him. And yeah, when I moved here, there was like the Lady Bunny and Wigstock and all those things. But I didn't. But it was still very like underground, you know. And now it's so mainstream. But I guess yeah, that's New York. I mean, um, it's you get kind of. This is going to sound also like obnoxious, but you get kind of used to just celebrities living here. Here's the thing that I always say that annoys my kids, which I find delightful is we're also big like Broadway nerds, and that's like our if we spend money on I don't like we don't all go like skiing in Switzerland, um
Hmm.
but we go to shows, and uh my kids will roll their eyes. They can't even hear me right now, but they're gonna roll their eyes because they're gonna know I'm saying this somehow and it's gonna annoy them. But there's this thing you do after Broadway shows that it's stage door, which is a verb. and they stopped doing it during the pandemic because pandemic, but now it's back and everyone's happy. So you know where the stage door is at every show, and you gather there. There's usually some kind of like bike rack, that's a barrier, and the cast comes out, and sometimes they just wave, but sometimes they go up and down and sign their playbills and whatever. And which is fun in and of itself. But more often than not, even the super famous ones like Jonathan Groff, um, or tons of them, or Darren Criss, they will, who I just saw in maybe Happy Ending, they'll come out in their like whatever, jeans and a t-shirt and a hoodie, and then when they're done, they just like sling on their backpack and walk into the night. Very rarely do they like get into a SUV and drive away. Like they're just like, I'm just an actor, and they just turn it. They're just like, I'm working. And you're like, right? They're just a working actor. Like they're not royalty. Like they're just and I find it so sweet, and again, my kids are like, oh, we know, but like somewhere. But I find that very sweet, and it's like a very New York experience, just to be like, well, bye, Philippa Sue, or whatever. As they walk off into even Jen Colella, who I love, who was in Suffs most recently, and who I fell in love with in during Come From Away. She was the cutest because she's like a big deal here, and she did her thing and chatted with people, and then she got onto her scooter. She scooted with her backpack and her hoodie, and she scooted off into the night. And I was like, it's Jen Colella scooting away.
Yeah, I mean, it is something to be like, because like, I mean, obviously I didn't grow up in that area or anything. I'm like a West Coast Seattle like kind of thing. But like, so like, I think for most people, they kind of like see them as like, it's like them, like
Yeah.
they're like untouchable kind of thing.
Right. Well, my
Yeah.
favorite, and you can find this on, on Twitter and online, is this is the cutest. This is like the cutest neighborhood celebrity thing. Is that Steve Buscemi lives right over there. I'm pointing, like one block away, just one house up from us on the next block. And so you see him around. Also John Turturro, but Steve Buscemi is famous in the neighborhood for being Steve Buscemi, but also because he loves Halloween. And for the last X number of years that I can remember, he is dressed up for Halloween. Not only that, but has dressed up as one of his characters for Halloween. So the first time I saw him, and side note, he was walking up our block with Elvis Costello, and I saw them walking toward us, and I was like, who's the guy with the Elvis Costello hat with Steve Buscemi? And I was like, oh, it's Elvis Costello. And Steve Buscemi was dressed as his character from Spy Kids. So he had like the lab coat and so like they used to kind of walk around the neighborhood, and they would get candy, and then they'd give the candy back out. Like they literally trick or treated at my house, and my poor in-laws had no idea who they were. We were like, I love it. And but then he has a party at his house, and everyone knows where it is. And they have like a little tiny, they're all brownstones, but there's like a little tiny like square that's their front yard. So everyone knows to just like go by and see what Steve Buscemi is wearing. And he chats with people, whatever. And like the most famous year, he was dressed as his character. This was like 3 years ago. He was dressed as he was dressed as his character on 30 Rock, where he was the narc, and so he was dressed as, he had the backpack, the baseball cap and the backpack and the skateboard, and how do you do, fellow kids?
Yeah.
And it was so funny, and it's so like he doesn't pretend he's not famous. Right? This is what's so charming about it. He's not like, I'll be a clown this year. Like he doesn't pretend he's not famous. He dresses as his own characters, but then he's also just a regular guy with a Halloween party on his front lawn. And no one bothers. I mean, everyone walks by and chats, but no one like, it's friendly. Like no one bothers him, and he's like partying in there. And you'll walk by and be like, okay, so that's Elvis Costello, and I think that's Diana Krall, and that was Jim Jarmusch, wasn't that? Wasn't that Jim Jarmusch? And then who's the guy? I don't know. He was wearing a mask. Like who are his friends?
That's
but
awesome.
it's just like super neighborhoody and cute,
I
so
love
that's
it.
the big, that's the sort of like the most, like, I would say not just New York but Brooklyn, sort of celebrities, they're just like us story. Anyway,
Yeah.
we're off topic, but that's a good one.
No, I love it. I love it. Yeah. Yeah, no, that's hilarious. I love it so much. Anyway, I unfortunately we're all already at the hour mark.
Yeah.
Where can the audience find you?
Walking past Steve Buscemi's house. No. Um, Thank you for asking. The simplest thing is to actually visit Gold Comedy, goldcomedy.com on the internet, and also Gold Comedy on Instagram. And if anyone wants to find me personally, they can figure it out. I'm easy to find. But my wish is that you go check out Gold Comedy and find your own funny, and check out all the cool classes and the community that we have to offer. And if you DM me or Gold on Instagram and tell me and say that you heard about me on this podcast, we'll, depending on what you want to do, we'll figure out a discount for you. We'll work it out.
Awesome.
Happy to do that.
Thank you so much. That's so awesome. I love it. Well, thank you so much for being on, Lynn. It was great to talk to you.
Great to talk to you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Have a good weekend.
Thank you. You too.